Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Gaydon, and I work at Brightcove here in the UK. Apologies, we're starting a little bit after time, just to give people a chance to come back in after lunch. So this session is going to be on driving viewership and engagement. For those of you who aren't familiar with Brightcove, we've been involved with streaming video since 2004, which is when the company was set up in Boston, Massachusetts. We now have over 4,500 customers streaming video in almost every country and territory globally. So what I think that gives us is hopefully a good perspective on what makes a compelling video experience, and what are the levers that can really drive increases in viewing of video and also engagement with video. And what I'm really going to be talking about today is a sort of framework that we have created to kind of consider that question within, which we call the video strategy framework, and to sort of provide some thoughts around that, maybe some best practices, and also some examples where we see customers and publishers who are, who we think are doing things very well. I think one thing I would say right now is the real sort of sea change that I've seen in the 4.5 years that I've been at Brightcove is the switch in terms of the shift in terms of the profile of business and of customer that we have. When I joined Brightcove, I used to work at Channel 4. It was very much digital media companies that we worked with. It was broadcasters, music labels, print and publishing companies, magazines, and so forth. What we see now, and indeed have seen, really for the last 12 months, is a trend where we are now working with more, if you like, non-media companies than media companies. So whether those are brands, government institutions, financial services, all of these types of sectors have kind of really taken to video as a communication medium. And as I said, we see really explosive growth in terms of consumption of video in those areas. I think we've got sort of 30 minutes for the presentation and 50 minutes for Q&A. Please do stop me and ask questions as I go through the presentation, or indeed save them up to the end as very much as you like. So this is the framework that I was talking about. This is the video strategy framework, and we sort of came up with this concept about 12 months ago, and the thinking behind it was we work with a lot of customers who have been publishing video for a long time, so therefore there's a lot of data, a lot of information that we have gleaned through working with them, and wouldn't it be great if we could put it into some kind of structure that would make it hopefully easier to communicate back to other publishers and interested parties what we think the key drivers of a successful video experience are. This is, this framework is, is strategic. It's quite high level, and as we go through, I think what we'll see is that not all of the elements that are represented in the framework are going to be specific or of specific interest to your business, but a mixture of them taken, as appropriate and as relevant, we think will provide great results for your video experience. So I'll just go through the sort of various elements and give a brief overview of what we mean by each one. So mix. This is the mixture of types of video content that you're offering. So this could be live, this could be on demand, short form, long form, and so forth. Quantity, very simple. This is how much content you've got. Quality. Quality is interesting because there are a couple of different things here. There is the quality of the content, both in terms of the production and also in terms of the editorial. So, how good does it look and how interesting is it, I suppose. And then also the quality of the viewing experience that's being presented to the user. What does the player experience look like? Is it easy to load? Is it well branded? Does it have lots of interactivity? This is what we mean by content quality. Discovery, how easy is it to find that content and those viewing experiences? So, and again, to that point, content needs to be discovered before it's viewed. Distribution, this is finding audiences where they are. Again, I think one of the big trends that I've seen is, again, when I started with Brightcove, very much the way of doing things was to try and bring audiences to a particular website or set of websites. There is now there's much more of I think an appreciation that sometimes it's necessary to go beyond your own network of sites or properties to actually find and engage with new audiences in wherever they happen to be. Devices leave no screen behind. So obviously we're all very much aware of the huge explosion in terms of video consumption on mobile devices. That is soon to be, I suspect, overtaken by the connected TV rush. So really this is, in terms of distribution and reaching new viewers, make sure you don't leave any screens out. Monetization, this is probably, I think, not as relevant for this session, but is obviously quite an important consideration for a lot of people who are engaged with video. And then really kind of surrounding all of that is the all-important, if I can get this thing to work, analytics. So that which is measured improves. I think the importance of analytics, can't be overstated. The ability to look into a content archive or a content library, see how content is performing in particular places on a site, or whether it's on mobile, and really kind of tone and polish the viewer experience and the content that's being presented to the user based on that. And really that kind of continuous and rigorous measurement of your video initiatives is absolutely crucial. So if we look at mix first of all, again, when I started working in video, it was very much about on-demand sort of short-form content. Whilst a few companies, a few publishers had started off with long-form catch-up services like 4on-demand and the iPlayer and so forth. An awful lot of the content that was being consumed and that we were handling was clips, if you like, short-form on-demand clips. Again, very much in the kind of entertainment space. So we weren't seeing much sort of branded content. We weren't seeing particularly content intended for internal communications, for training and so forth. This has really changed, so that now we see content of varying different formats. So whether it's again it's on demand or live, short form or long form, each of these different content types, different viewing models offer different opportunities. So we'll talk about live in a bit more detail. But for instance, with short form, it's great for snacking. It's great for sort of repeated views. And it doesn't cost as much to produce. You can keep a sort of a short form content archive going very steadily with relatively low cost from a number of different content sources. And again, we'll have a look at some of those later. Obviously, long form content, you get much deeper engagement. The ad value, if that's your form of monetization, is significantly higher. However, that comes at a cost, both in terms of the quality of production, but also potentially additional measures such as content protection and DRM that you might need to take into account as part of the experience. So really sort of key here is to understand the mix of video that you're going to offer, and to understand what the opportunities are around each of those different types and the considerations when implementing an experience with that type of content. One sort of trend that we've noticed that I wanted to highlight is the blending of, or the effect of blending on-demand video experience in live video experiences. So we have a number of publishers who are really getting stuck into live now. They are increasingly looking to have regular live events, and they're promoting these quite heavily. I think there was a big barrier to entry in terms of live streaming, the complexity of the technology involved, the cost of the technology involved, and I dare say a little bit of a sort of fear factor in terms of reliability and performance and so forth. A lot of those obstacles have been removed, and as a result, we see more and more live events being pushed through, certainly the Brightcove Video Cloud platform. But one thing we did notice was that publishers who have an existing on-demand archive, if they then put a live event up on their site and sort of within the context of the on-demand archive, it gives a halo effect to that on-demand archive. So first of all, new people come along to watch the live event, but then they stick around and they watch the on-demand content afterwards. So I think sort of in terms of the message here is that putting those two types of video content together can really yield gains in terms of viewership. And obviously, live content is one of the most engaging forms of video. So I think there's a lot of potential there if implemented well. Just to give, to my point about a lot more publishers getting involved in live streaming, to give a sense of the breadth of live events that we are being asked to work with at the moment. These are, we've got obvious ones like the Mail Online. They put a live player with James Murdoch appearing before the Commons Committee. The Football Association, this was a really interesting use case. The FA changed sponsor from, I can't remember who, to Budweiser in 2011, and to raise awareness, sort of mark that change, they live streamed the first FA Cup match of 2011 on Facebook. I think it was somebody like Wimbledon Dons versus again, I can't remember who, and I'll be honest, they didn't get a huge number of viewers. But again, in terms of sort of thinking, thinking of new and interesting ways of using Facebook, of using social media, of using live, I thought that was really impressive. And then something a little bit more kind of high quality, I guess. The fashion brand Hugo Boss live streamed their 2012 men's show from Beijing in 3D. I couldn't get a good screenshot of that, unfortunately. That was a really, really innovative experience. They combined the live stream with a huge kind of branding and e-commerce experience, and were very, very pleased with the results. What I haven't got here, and which I think is worth calling out, are also the sort of, again, non-media examples. So increasingly, whether it is sort of company AGMs or listings calls or training seminars or the annual company get-together, increasingly these are being live streamed by the companies involved, and it's again a very, very popular way of communicating either a company's situation or information they need to share or training or what have you. So again, the requirement here really is certainly for a company like Brightcove, is that we've seen the quantities of video content that are flowing through our platform just exploding. So it's not just the large sort of magazine publishers or newspapers or broadcasters that have large content libraries. One of the largest content libraries that we handle is actually owned by a church. They have thousands of pieces of video content that they've collected over years and are now beginning to surface and make available to their parishioners, I suppose would be the right word. And the thing about the quantity piece is that more content equals more value. Video generates or draws more visitors through search. It generates more social engagement through the interaction with video. Pages with video convert more visitors, whether it's to signing up to a newsletter, subscribing to a service, buying an item. And they also have, obviously, a higher advertising value. CPMs for video being obviously a lot higher than display or static ad formats. So that sort of leads to the light bulb moment, why don't we put video on every page on our site? And that can also lead to the kind of, okay, we're going to need a lot more content. That last point, I think has been an obstacle and has been a problem for a lot of publishers and a lot of companies who are looking to get into video and to publish more video for whatever reason. There's, I think, a perception that creating video content can be very expensive to do properly, and then maybe you've created, X video clips or pieces of content for, that first campaign or that first initiative, and then you've got to kind of keep on refreshing that, and there's this ongoing cost, and it is significant. So I just want to sort of have a look at some of the ways that we have seen publishers growing their content library. Apologies for the shameless plug. That could be any platform. That could be a folder, on your network. But it says Brightcove Video Cloud. So these are the sort of ways in which we see companies creating content. Internal production. Again, I think the cost of internal production is really delimited by the type of company or the type of content that you're producing. I had a very interesting conversation with a magazine publisher the other day who said that previously they were producing 75 to 80% of all of the video content that they showed on their sites. And the reason for that was that there was an editorial requirement to kind of own that quality and for that quality of the content to be of the highest possible level. Unfortunately, that wasn't cost effective and it wasn't something that they could keep on doing indefinitely. And what he said is that had now dipped to around 40%, but a lot of it had been backfilled by, we'll call it UGC content, but content submitted, video content submitted by readers or viewers or users of the magazine site. One of the examples that he used was somebody who was at an aeroplane show and who saw the latest Boeing fly overhead and who captured it on their smartphone and sent it in. And that qualified as an exclusive. It was the first time that model of plane had been seen. And so the quality of the content really didn't matter as much as the context and the immediacy and the exclusivity. So when we talk about internal production, I think there are a lot of there are definitely a broad spectrum that surrounds that. Mobile uploads, I've kind of touched on that already, but obviously most people have smartphones now. Most people are familiar with the process of taking a piece of video and uploading it to Facebook, uploading it to to Twitter, to any number of sites, and we'll go into a bit more detail around that example a little later on. 5min Media I'm using as a specific example of a video content aggregator. This is one of the biggest in the US. It was recently bought by AOL, and I think they have a media library of around 600,000, 700,000 video clips in a variety of different genres, sport, entertainment, news, etc. So they offer that on a rev share basis, so depending on what the ad CPM, that can work or not. But there are increasing number of these types of aggregators. Partner media, this is really very simple. This is when you go to a company that you like and that you want to work with, and say, have you got any video that I can put on my site? We have complementary businesses. You give me your video, I'll give you mine. Peer media is something very similar, but we use it to distinguish or to make a distinction with peers within your company. So you might work for a company with a number of different divisions. You'd be amazed at how many companies we work with who say, oh, well, we don't have any video. And we say, but we work with this other division over there, and they've got hundreds of video clips, and they've never sort of put the two together. And then finally, user-generated content, which the concept of which I think we're all familiar with. So lots of different ways to grow that content library. And indeed, a mixture of those, a combination of those, can be very effective. Just on that sort of aggregation point, again, there are a number of content exchanges out there. I've picked the one that we have. And really that aggregates 4 or 5 different video content aggregators, any one of which you could go to and work with alone, and any one of which you could have your own commercial relationship with. But when you add it all together, there's several 100,000 pieces of video which you could use to drive your video experiences and your video initiatives. One other partner, Brightcove partner I wanted to call out is a company called File Mobile, who I suppose you would say are in the UGC space, but they're seeing some very interesting trends happening in the citizen journalism space. So they have a module that enables people out on the street to take videos, not unlike the guy at the air show that I mentioned, to go into a UI, to tag the content, news, current affairs, UK, economics, what have you, upload it, and then that makes it available to any number of news outlets who might then decide to use that piece of content to enhance a story that they have. I think the quality of UGC content. We always use the phrase like the cat on the skateboard for YouTube. I think that's a long time ago. And I think UGC really can form and should form an important part of your content strategy. On the slightly more sort of branded version, again, this is a combination of UGC and Facebook. So this was a campaign by Nissan looking for the next big Bollywood star. The campaign was called Star of India, and they had their own Facebook profile, Facebook fan page. People could upload their videos, watch them. This was a hugely popular campaign. It was kind of overwhelming. The amount of content, the amount of videos that were submitted. The quality varied. So on to quality. So high quality content, quick loading players, and engaging viewing experiences. This is a horrible slide, and I apologise. It's very wordy and sort of very faint. What this basically says is, it's possible now to encode video to be appropriate for specific devices. So there really isn't any excuse for a poor quality experience on whether it's on desktop or mobile or connected TV. Everybody who is working in video should be leveraging the encoding functionality that's available to make sure that every user on every device gets the best possible experience, and that's all very possible, and indeed is standard for most online video platforms, certainly. I think also to the first point there, encoding to as many different formats with the caveat that it needs to be manageable and cost effective, so that again you're reaching as many different devices as possible. This is Burberry. I found this sort of trawling through various sites the other day, and you can kind of see the quality of this experience is incredible. It's one very big video, and it effectively takes over most of the desktop. Yes, you need a very high connection speed and lots of CPU and so forth to run it, but it really is absolutely crystal clear, and it's a very high quality experience, which is perfect for their brand. Now that's not for everyone, but I think they're setting the bar very high, and I think and it's great to see that kind of quality being distributed over the internet. Anybody tell me what that is? It's Felix, yeah, exactly. So I was trying to find a screenshot which sort of gave a clue but didn't help. That one I thought was a bit too obvious. The point here is that this is absolutely compelling. I don't know if anybody hasn't watched this. It's on the Red Bull site. It's called Red Bull Stratos. It's amazing. 35 cameras capturing this guy breaking the sound barrier. And that is, I think that is quality video content at its best. It's incredibly exciting. It's engaging. Okay, we're not going to have people doing this kind of stunt every day. But in terms of just, that the way that video can really capture an audience's imagination and kind of hold them, I think this is a great example. Discovery. Really the message here is very often we see publishers who create a lot of video content, create a very nice player or player experience, and then they kind of bury it somewhere. They don't provide on-site search. They don't provide lots of different routes into the content, whether it's categories or tag searches or what have you. I think just the message here is if you're going to go to the trouble of collecting a video library and creating engaging content, make sure that every user or every viewer or every visitor to your site or your app or what have you has the best possible chance of finding that content, and you will reap the rewards. And I think that's a pretty old stat, and it's probably gone up by now, and hopefully everybody is very familiar with that. Distribution. So video viewing on social networks grew 40%, and this was about 3 or 4 months ago, so it's probably grown even more since then. It is one of the top 3 destinations for online video viewing on the web, and increasingly we see publishers doing some very, very interesting things indeed. I already mentioned the live streaming example, and also the UGC example from Nissan. But if we have a look at a few more, Marks & Spencer's TV. So Marks & Spencer's TV showcases M&S products, and also gives people the opportunity to click to buy those products. The M&S TV experience is Facebook friendly, let's say, which means that you can share M&S TV clips complete with the e-commerce experience onto someone's Facebook page, thus effectively turning Facebook into another shop window for you or for your brand. The Miami Dolphins, again, this is a live streaming example. They live streamed, I think, the first game of the NFL season last year, so like the FA, but probably with a few more viewers. And finally, the BBC, who have put all of at least the last sort of 6 or 7 series of Top Gear full-length episodes into a Facebook app and made them available for pay-per-view. It's interesting. This used to be a like to rent full-length Top Gear specials, and you now actually have to pay for them. So BBC obviously not getting enough from the license fee there. We've spoken about devices and this kind of notion of leaving no device behind. And the message really here is try and put your content, onto every screen possible. That's again, 43 million US homes will have internet-connected TVs by 2015. Here are some other stats that we commissioned some research from. So 100 million households own at least one connected TV. 19% own tablet devices. 50% own smartphones. This one, I found extraordinary. There will be almost, well, not quite half again as many, but there will be a lot more mobile connected devices than there will be people by 2016. And one of the things that all of these mobile connected devices is doing at the moment is consuming video content. I helped launch a couple of mobile TV channels for Channel 4 back in 2004, and I think we maybe got sort of 25, 30 people tuning in. The content was really good. It was from very well-known shows, like A Place in the Sun and so forth, but the technology was there, the experience wasn't there, broadband wasn't really there. All of that has changed, and with the rise of the appification of content, which is a horrible word, but it's this increasing ability and trend to consume content through mobile apps. The amount of video content that is going to be consumed through mobile devices, will outstrip the desktop probably sooner than that previous slide, I think, which said 2015. So there's a huge opportunity here, and if you haven't made your video content available for viewing on mobile phones and on tablets, then you should do. And again, in terms of viewership and in terms of increasing engagement, that's very low-hanging fruit. One caveat I should mention is that this is the mobile space, especially, it's a complex one. Obviously, there are a number of players kind of slugging it out for domination. At the moment, the iOS is if you combine iPhone and iPad, is doing better than Android. But this is a very, very market and sort of region specific or country specific stat. So I know, for instance, that in Spain, Android is significantly more popular than iPhone because it's cheaper. What we see though is that the consumer demand for video content and for the ability to consume video content on these devices means that it is going to be well worth addressing and getting past the kind of complexity of multiple devices, multiple player runtimes and so forth, and the kind of the fragmentation in the market in order to kind of really to win that audience over and to take advantage of it. And then the all-important analytics. Again, I think I mentioned this before. Any sort of video initiative that you're doing, it's absolutely critical that you understand what the goals are, what the KPIs are, and that you're very, very rigorous in measuring those and scrutinizing those. The most successful publishers of video in the newspaper industry are the ones who are watching almost minute to minute how their users are engaging with pieces of video and swapping them out if they're not doing so well. There's very, very little point, I think, certainly in that model, in leaving content to sit there for 2 or 3 days, and then to be surprised that a certain piece of content hasn't done very well. So again, I can't really overstress the importance of the really vigorous and rigorous analytics around any video initiative. Hopefully that leaves us with a decent amount of time for questions. Or a huge amount of time for no questions. Going once? Yeah, gentleman in the front row.
The initiative recently with Brightcove connected mobile apps on TV.
Yeah.
Just interested in thoughts on that. If it's not relevant.
No, I do think it's relevant. So I think what you're talking about there is the latest release of our App Cloud platform, which is our mobile app development platform, now coming with access to Apple's AirPlay technology kind of baked in, as it were. We think this is really, really exciting for a couple of reasons. The first one is that, Apple TV's been through, 2 or 3 iterations, and it hasn't been quite right yet, but Apple TV they've recently started outselling Xboxes in America. Xboxes up until now had kind of been the most popular entertainment platform or console, I guess. And this is Apple TV really without any marketing and without Apple really kind of getting behind it and pushing it. So we think that Apple TV will be very popular. We think it'll be a big hit in the Christmas in the stores at Christmas this year. So we're very excited about the ability to have App Cloud apps have access to that platform. That's the sort of kind of commercial, dry sort of bit why it's exciting. I think the more interesting piece is what you get in terms of potential for second screen or dual screen interaction when you're using Apple TV. So using AirPlay, it's possible to mirror your tablet screen and kind of use the tablet screen for discovery and for interaction and for, for want of a better word, remote control, but kind of much more broadly than that, and then literally throw content, video, or indeed games, could be an interactive widget or what have you, up onto the screen. So you're replacing your remote control with your iPad. I don't know if anybody's tried logging into a connected TV app using a standard remote control device. If you haven't, don't. It's a nightmare. It literally took me 5 minutes, which is an awfully long time to sit there clicking buttons. Whereas with AirPlay and with Apple TV, you're literally just tap, 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 and you're browsing through content. You're looking at Twitter feeds. You're playing a game. The sort of the potential there for really, really engaging video experience and just more generally content experiences, I think is huge. So, yeah, we're very excited about that. So.
Could you comment a little bit more about the role of the interactivity in HTML5, not only related to the architecture, but generally in your
So we released an HTML5 version of our video cloud player a couple of years ago. It was actually used by Apple when they were kind of promoting the iPad and the lack of Flash and so forth. They used the New York Times as an example. They're a customer. We're putting a big bet on HTML5. We think it's the standard. Well, it will become the standard. We started not moving away from Flash, although I think the time when the majority of our players are HTML5 as opposed to Flash is actually coming a lot sooner than we had thought. But we see it as the technology of the future, and we're kind of supporting it and pushing it as hard as we can. I think the challenge for Brightcove and indeed for all of our publishers in the sort of the wider industry is it's still a pretty young technology. There are still lots of things that you either can't do or that it is more complicated to do than it is in Flash. And so there are areas, whether it's sort of ad serving or analytics or whatever, where we're kind of having to go back and almost reinvent the wheel to a certain extent. That said, the ubiquity of the increasing ubiquity of HTML5, the fact that an increasing number of connected devices and OTT platforms are all sort of beginning to sort of standardize around HTML5, I think makes it the right choice. So yeah, very, very much part of our core strategy. So. So if the question is HTML5 everywhere yet, and can you deploy on HTML5 on every device and platform, then no, you can't. But in terms of looking at those platforms and devices which appear to be gaining the largest sort of audience share and the largest market share, our experience is that they are all either have moved or are moving towards HTML5. You're absolutely correct. You're always going to get these sort of slightly non-standard quirks, and there will always, I suspect, be long tails, maybe not the right word, but a number of devices that are either market specific or sector specific, which are not a good fit for HTML5. But again, I mean, I think we thought that our main player or the runtime for our main player would be Flash for a lot longer than actually is going to be the case. we've been, very surprised and, and happy because we got in there early at how quickly HTML5 is being adopted. One more question, time for one more question? Yes. Oh, that's a really good question. I think that entirely depends on the event. So let's take the two examples that are sporting examples I used. One was the FA live streaming the first FA Cup match of 2011 on Facebook, and the other was the Miami Dolphins live streaming the first their first NFL match on Facebook. Realistically, looking at the two teams playing in the FA Cup match, you would not have expected a large number of viewers. And indeed, they didn't get it. But that wasn't really the point. The point was to do something that was newsworthy, that could really say, hey, look, we've got a new sponsor in Budweiser, and they're, very much more forward-thinking and modern and exciting than, I really wish I could remember who the last sponsor was. And so they were actually measuring the success of that live event in how many column inches they got, and it was hugely successful by that version. So the numbers, the number of viewers isn't always that important. Another way, whereas the Miami Dolphins got hundreds of thousands of viewers, but then so they should, because millions of Americans support, well, maybe not millions, but a very large number of Americans support that team. Another example that how you could look at defining success is the sort of the AGM for a large multinational company. How many people previously were able to actually attend and listen to and to the chairman's comments and words, or read the prospectus or what have you, versus how many actually tuned into the live stream of that meeting. And maybe it was only a couple of hundred people, but again, relative to the total number of the audience and the amount, the extent to which you've kind of moved access to that meeting on, again, that starts to look worthwhile. Those are not great answers, I know, they're not very specific, but I think the important thing is to be very clear that it's not always about the number of people who are actually watching a screen. Sometimes it's just about sort of trying to advance the argument, or to break into new audiences, or indeed to generate media interest. Thank you very much.